Hello and welcome to Rose City Raven's Spatial Spectacle. I'm your host Stephanie, and my guests and I will dive into the mystical and mysterious world of metaphysical topics and creatures. From exploring the unknown dimensions of reality to uncovering the secrets of mythical beings, I'm always on a quest to bring you the most intriguing and fascinating information. Join me as we embark on a journey to unravel the mysteries of the universe and gain a deeper understanding of the unseen. Get ready to expand your mind and be entertained. Today's guest is the Mystic Rose, Roseanne Rozier. Reverend Rose is an ordained minister, Reiki Master teacher, psychic medium, medical intuitive, spiritual counselor, tarot and oracle reader, coach, and teacher. Over the last 35 plus years, she's worked with thousands of clients across the globe, helping them find answers and solutions to life's most challenging situations. When spirit calls, Rose has the extraordinary ability to communicate with those who have crossed over into spirit, making meaningful connections for her clients with impressive clarity. She uses a myriad of tools and sources from spirit to guide her in helping you. Rose connects with her clients on a quantum level to provide detailed, compassionate guidance for their spiritual path. Her teachings are relatable and down to earth, offering practical guidance to empower students to make significant improvements in their spiritual and earthly lives. Rose's big heart and eclectic motherly charm help clients feel comfortable opening up to receive love and support available to them. She can be reached by visiting her studio or booking time with her directly. She looks forward to meeting you, and I look forward to sharing part one of our conversation together. Here's Rose.
I pulled a card for you today just for the whole overall thing.
Okay.
And I just pulled an oracle card. And, you were talking about, I was like thinking, well, before it got started, I was kind of like, well, how is this going to go? And I pulled a couple cards, and the first card I pulled up for you was answer the call. So I'm like, girlfriend, this is a good one for you. And then I had a hard time getting on the call. I was like, oh my. I'm like, that's just fabulous. But answering the call, whenever I look at that, I'm looking at this card and I'm like, oh, it couldn't have been better for you, because you're putting off starting all of this and, getting your ball rolling. But, when you think about answering the call, it's not just one thing, it's many things. What is your soul pulling you to do? What is your soul pulling you to talk about? You have to listen to your soul. Your soul is the oldest thing about you. Your body was second, your mind was third. So don't listen to your mind. It's like letting a baby drive. It doesn't know anything.
Right.
What does it know? It has the least amount of experience in this existence. Listen to your soul.
Yeah. And I think that trying to be more present with myself and my soul has been a bit, because I've always been like, not always, but there's been a lot of times that I've just been kind of spinning and not necessarily being present and with myself and listening to myself. And so that's been a really interesting journey to it's funny that you pulled that, because it's true. It's like, just do it. Like,
yep, do it. All of us struggle. All of us struggle every day. The one thing that I always tell all of my clients and all the people I coach is basically like, you have two choices: love and fear. That's it. That's it. That's all a life is made of. In this flesh suit, that's it. Yeah. Love and fear.
That's true.
And you have to trust yourself enough to love yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. Yeah. And that's a big, we signed up for this, but we signed up to, I know I didn't sign up to, I'm really thankful to have freedom, because I can change the narrative of my life. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Thank the good Lord, thank the,
what is it the Buddha says? The Buddha has a quote that says, Every day I am born again. It's what I do today that matters most.
Yeah. Because
The
the rest
majority
of
of
it is just stories that, you know,
Yes.
yeah.
A lot of people live in the past. And when you live in the past, you live with regret, you live with resentment, you live with depression. You hold on to things you can't change.
Yeah.
You can't do anything about it. And when you sit down and you think about what is present, what is right now, today is the only day in which your mind, your body, and your soul are all in the same place. And quantum physically, that's where time really exists. Because truly, time is not real. We just make it linear from left to right or right to left, depends on which way you read.
Yeah.
So it is linear because our mind, the tiny little baby in here, has to have it broke down that way. But time, the past, the present, and future is all happening at the same time. But the only time in which you can touch it, make it real, turn it around, is right now. That's it. And you can't jump into the future all the time worried about what's going to happen. Coulda, woulda, shoulda, maybe, canna. Too many other people are living in the future too, making all those same mistakes. And you'll live with anxiety. You'll live with insomnia. You'll live chewing your fingernails all the time and worrying about everything. You're not going to live there. Your heart might be there. Your soul might be there. Your mind might be there, but your body will never be in the future. Your body sits here alone, ill at ease. So you are at dis-ease. So a lot of people wonder, why is my body hurting? Why is my body sick? What's going on? Well, it's lonely.
Right. Everybody else is elsewhere.
Yeah. Everybody's lived in the past. Everybody's lived in the future. Its soul, its heart, its mind are in two different places, split apart like a teeter-totter. But Buddhism teaches you mindfulness of today is when you put it all back in the pot together. And that's when you get mindfully present. And you can actually touch and move things.
Yeah, and that's when the fun happens.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, when you are present. And, you know, because there was a good, like, and I think that it's funny because I hate to like bring up the pandemic times, but it like set
back in BC before COVID.
Yes. You know, my life before COVID and my life now, I wouldn't say are completely and utterly different, but it's drastically different because I sat with myself and it was really painful at first. I'm not going to lie. Like, because, you know, when you're accustomed to living like in the future and in the past simultaneously, you know what I mean? Like it's chaos. It's just straight up chaos.
It is, because you don't know who's guiding you. You don't know who to listen to. It's like having a horse that's going in two different directions.
Yeah.
And you can't do it. You just can't do it. You know, I always think about, I made this note and it says, you know, sometimes resistance is there to make you make a decision. You know, and I was sitting here meditating this morning. I was like, you know, what is a lot of times, what is the barrier to people making decisions? And one of the things COVID made us all do is make a collective global decision. We had to care about somebody beside ourselves. We had to care about all of us at once. And for a lot of people, we're all so caught up in our own minds, we really don't care about anybody else in like in a life or death scenario. And so COVID forced us to go inside and say, not only do I have to keep me alive, I have to keep everybody else alive.
Yeah.
And that's an awesome responsibility a lot of people don't deal with at all, ever in their life. So it fundamentally shifted how people think about reality and how people think about immortality.
Yeah. Yes, 100%. Especially when you see like your loved ones like drop like flies. I mean, that was a lot. I was nowhere near my family, you know, and it was really difficult to you know, sit with a bunch of fear and pain and all this stuff and kind of and lift yourself out of that, you know.
And if you're already predisposition, when you're empathetic and you have this battle going on inside you, not to feel everything that's happening, and then everything happens all at once. It's a struggle within yourself not to be constantly depressed with everyone else's depression, because the whole planet was depressed. And you're like, wait, I'm used to just dealing with my own depression.
Yeah.
And now I have to deal with billions of people being depressed, billions of people being angry, billions of people being confused and fearful. And you're pulling all that in on yourself as an empath. And you have to understand that it is something we got to let go of. Every one of us are here on our own path. Every one of us are here by choice. And every one of us have to go through these stages of life and death, because just like everything's fear and love, physics teaches us that everything moves toward the positive. Now, what is your positive and what is my positive might be two different things. And someone's death might mean someone else's movement towards something more positive. And it's hard to think about things, like horrible, terrible things happening, causing something wonderful to bloom out of that. But just look at the forest floor. Trees are dying, plants are dying, animals are dying, but new things are born out of it. Think of all the new COVID babies we're going to get.
Yeah. and on top of COVID, on top of COVID in the West, we were dealing with wildfires at the same time too. And that was just like it was because we're like, okay, well, we're trapped. We shouldn't be going anywhere, but we did. We drove down the coast, and it was, probably one of the most depressing things that I've ever experienced. And it's like on top of the whole COVID thing. And it was just like, but I'd never, I felt like I needed to see that kind of stuff in person,
Destruction.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not physical destruction of the planet and the physical destruction of things we cannot control, things that are outside of our purvey of control. And especially in nature, whether it be tsunamis, whether it be tornadoes, whether it be wildfires, it teaches us that nature has ultimate control. She has ultimate control. And that leads us back, to witchcraft even, and intention. Even in all that death, life will spring new. There's always a cycle. There's always a cycle. So, intention is everything. As humans, we're like, we don't want to lose our houses. We don't want to lose our possessions. We don't want to lose all this. But we still have our lives. We can always rebuild, because nature does. She rebuilds fresh out of that floor every year, through fall, through winter, through spring, through summer. She's got this. She does it every year, with or without our help. She has before we ever got here as humans. So we're like, we want to control this. She goes, oh, hold my beer. We got this.
Yes.
So it's pretty interesting. I always am fearful for the loss of the humans and the animals that are in that. But you have to trust the universe has a plan. You have to trust that Source has a plan, that God has a plan. And just pray and meditate and focus on what can you do in the places that you can touch. You cannot worry for the whole planet. I mean, even the Bible says worry is wasteful. In Matthew, it says, God takes care of the animals of the field, the flowers, the birds. Why wouldn't he take care of you?
Right. And it's like, there's always, looking back on some of the most trying times in my life, thinking like, oh my gosh, I can't handle this, and then like looking back, and it's like, okay, I may not have nailed it, but I got through it.
You know why you did? Because you're here now.
Yes.
No matter what issue somebody brings to me, I always say this: whatever happened to you, yes. But you're strong because you're here now.
Yes.
But imagine this. What if every single thing that ever happened to you was taken away from you? Every disappointment, every sadness, every no, every firing, every dislocation, every time you didn't get what you want. Every time you were angry, we took all that out of you. What would Stephanie be like?
Boring, probably.
But who would go to you for advice? Who would ask you for
because
help?
who wants to get advice from someone who doesn't have any experience, you know?
What makes us strong is our ability to carry on.
That's true.
That's what makes us strong. As a person, as a collective, as a planet, what makes us strong is our ability to carry on. So to sit down and to think, oh, I can take no more. You've probably taken worse and probably thought it was worse. You can always sit down and say, you know, this is a lot right now, but what can I actually touch? You know, I have a lot of people gripe and carry on and say things in passing, and I always reply with this very first question. I hear you have problems, but what are you doing about it? And they'll go, oh, I'm doing nothing. And I'll go, that's excellent. So will I. And they're like, what? And I'll say, well, you're not worrying too much about it. You're not doing anything about it. I don't think I will either. So I save my energy for me. Because I spent a lot of time walking around going, do you want this? Do you want this? Do you want this? Do you want this? Can I help you do this? Can you take my shirt? Can you take my car? Can you take this? Take my money. And they just take.
Yeah.
And then they go, well, I don't know what I want, and I'm still not happy. And then something clicked. I followed what soul said, and soul says, hey. The best way to make your heart full is put your hand out to people who are asking for help and who are actually willing to help themselves. And that goes from magic to the general public to everything. Because people, all of us have problems. The best way to help someone is say, I know you have a problem. What are you doing? What have you done? What have you tried? I don't want to reinvent your wheel. So all that didn't work. You still want my help? Let's do it. But if they go, I've tried nothing. I don't want to do nothing. And I'll say, that's excellent. So will I. I will meet your nothing with nothing.
I'll meet your nothing with nothing and call it a day.
Yes.
You're absolutely right, because there have been several times that I've just over and over helped people, you know, with
give.
giving.
And then you have nothing.
I'm the one ending up with absolutely nothing, because I'm at their nothing with everything I had.
And they have repaid you with exactly what they gave to themselves.
Yes. And I don't have anger toward these people, but it was a lesson that needed to be learned.
It's a lesson for you as it was a lesson for me.
Correct.
Now, you have to also remember that sometimes most of us are, in our life, we're all having experiences, but not every experience we have is a lesson.
Yeah.
And that was a hard lesson for me. Yeah. Because I would go through life going, what am I supposed to learn? What is my lesson? What am I supposed to learn? Well, not everything you experience is a lesson for you. Sometimes it's a lesson for someone else. You're their lesson.
Oh, yeah, I know for a fact. I've been so many people's lessons. Like, it's fine. We signed up for this.
That's right. They said, good luck if you picked my straw.
Good luck, y'all. Like, I do pray for you.
Bless your heart.
I do. And, you know, and that's another thing that I feel like I've really started to forgive myself for the way that I've treated other people in times of, you know, fear-based, anger-based vibrations, and just like being in a tough spot. You know, you got to forgive yourself as well as forgiving other people, because, you know, I feel like that was a huge
forgiveness starts at home.
Yes, that was a huge struggle for me, because I'm like, I forgive these people. I forgive them. And it's like, but do you really forgive yourself? Because there's two sides to this coin.
Yes. And you also have to remember too, that compassion starts with the word C-O, means both of us. We share a passion together, and our compassion is to move forward. So for me to be compassionate to you means I have to be compassionate to me. And knowing that if I was in your shoes, I would have acted the same shitty way.
Yeah, I mean, it was shitty. Like,
And you have to remember that when you are advancing, when you are progressing, when you are becoming more enlightened, so to speak, when you're growing, you have to forgive yourself because you didn't act any better at that time, because you didn't know any better at that time. It's like Maya Angelou says, when you know better, you do better. Simple as that. When you know better, you do better. So as we get our experience points on this level of life, when we know better, we do better. You know, I get a lot of questions. People are like, what's deja vu? I said, oh, deja vu is the checkpoint in your game. I said, you've been here before, you know what to do, and now you have the choice. Do you make the same choice you made before, or do you make a new choice? So deja vu to me is always kind of like, yep, I'm on the right track, same track I've been. I've played this level several times, but do I split off now? Do I do what I've always done, or do I make something different happen? So you always have the choice to forgive yourself and move forward to a new road. Whatever that road deals to you, you can deal with it. You've dealt with every road that was dealt to you in the past. You can move forward. It always is your option. That's the thing about free will. You have the choice. Yeah, I always get asked questions like, do you do spell work? Do you do spell work? Do you spell work? And I said, oh, absolutely. I do it all the time. For me.
yeah, for me,
I
for
do
mine.
it for me. I don't do any spell work for someone else, because that is their travel and their journey and what they need to do. Now, I do what I call enhancements, like earrings and necklaces and rings. I will give you things to boost up your energy. But as far as like actual spells, that's on you, your intention. What do you have working behind it? Because everything from a rock to a gem all has to do with intention. Whether you're lighting that candle or tying knots in that string, it is about the intention of the person creating that bond with that magic. If they do not have that intention, they have no magic. I can't do magic for someone else. I don't know their intention. And I also don't want what comes back, the repercussions of that magic, because that's not my energy. It's also not my dog shit to clean up in the morning.
Yeah, I mean,
So
truly,
I don't want it.
truly.
So I always tell everybody, I can teach you how to do it, but I ain't going to do it for you. So just like life, I can coach them. Hey, that's a ditch. Probably not take that. The bridge is out on that road. But you can take a different route. You have free will. That's what makes us humans. That's why we chose to be humans. So we can take this body, this avatar, and continue to make free will choices with this soul. We want to have these experiences, or we wouldn't be here.
Yeah, I I agree with you. Sometimes I don't. I'm like, I just question myself. I'm like, why would you do this?
Stop thinking.
Right, and that's the thing. It's like the mind wants to make like A through Z of all of this, and in reality, there is no sense. I mean, I really feel like this is I mean, a lot of interesting things have happened, like during meditation, or like I saw a full-bodied apparition of my uncle standing in my kitchen, and like that had never happened to me before.
That's because you're ready to see it.
You know, exactly. And like I feel like he was the one that was the perfect like first ghost.
Well, I don't really like the term ghost.
I know, I know.
Energy. So, yeah.
It's true. And they're not ghosts, they're energies. There's light beings like the rest of us.
Apparition is a great word for that. Yeah.
They
appear to you in a form you recognize that eases your soul.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting because he was like in his 30s, and you know, he
probably appeared to you at the age that you are now.
Yeah, it seemed like it was about that was about the time. So that was really, you know, just that's when the floodgates kind of started and started opening. With different, I mean, and none of it I've seen all kinds of crazy stuff that I'm just like, oh, I'm not even
Well,
gonna try to
you have a very logic-based brain.
yes.
Being a Libra, you want to be balanced. I always like to point out to Libras that you are the only sign of the zodiac that does not have a heartbeat. You are the only inanimate object. You are the only thing that is a thing. Everything else is a creature.
That's true.
So you have to think of things very permanently. Even though you're an air sign, subject to change. You can move around, but you are without a heartbeat. So you think like a machine. I need proof, I need evidence, and I need it to be logical. So when you get into metaphysical ideas and subjects and apparitions, people who think like that, whether it be their sun sign, their moon sign, or their rising, they're just like short-circuiting. Oh, how can this be happening? Well, your brain is the CPU of this trio. But it is only to sit here and go, oh, this is liquid, this is soft, this is hard. It's like Goldilocks. This one's just right. But it does nothing but grab information and categorize information. It is the administrative assistant to our soul. And its whole job is to gather information and categorize information. And what it cannot fit in a category, it's like, oh, that goes in the junk drawer. We don't know what's going on over there. That's for another day. And your soul's going, you're never going to understand this, baby. You're just this many years old. I'm eons old. You're never going to understand it. So you put that over in the junk drawer. Now, every once in a while, the brain starts digging through the junk drawer going, I still don't know why that's there. You tell your brain, stop thinking about it. People ask me all the time, how are you such a good reader? I say, I don't think about it. I don't think about it at all. I take my brain out, I put it on the table, and I just let soul start speaking. It's like being a funnel. I said, I do not care what I say to you because I'm not judging what I say to you. Because what I say to you is said to you through soul and source, from your soul to mine. You know it, I know it. Like some people say, how do you do so? I said, hey, you knew your uncle. So now I know your uncle. I know what he looks like because you knew what he looked like. When I read for people, they're like, how do you know that? I know that you don't know that. And I said, that's what makes it creepy.
And it is creepy. I mean, it really is. The first reading I had with you was creepy. I mean, you described the way my grandfather, looked, acted, what he did in his spare time, what he was probably doing at the time, I mean, my great grandmother, it's crazy. And my first marriage, I mean, I remember getting asking you, knowing good and damn well I shouldn't have asked because I already knew.
Don't ask if you don't want to know.
Yes. And then you were like, well, your second marriage will be better. And bless my first husband and his, new wife and family. I'm glad we went through that because it was a learning experience.
It was for both of you. Yes.
Mm-hmm,
and I love both of you.
I know.
And it's such an interesting thing when you think about how people are drawn together. Sometimes you get trauma bonded young and you raise each other so that you're better people for someone else.
Yeah.
Because you didn't have those parents to raise you. So you pick someone who goes, oh, you know what it's like not to be having good parents to raise us. So let's raise each other for a while. And then we're adults. And that happens for a lot of people. They get that first boyfriend or girlfriend and they kind of like, I'm just learning how to be an adult. And so are you. So let's learn together. And when I marry people, I always say, you're coming to me as lovers. In about 15 minutes, you're leaving as relatives. Think about how you treat your relatives.
Right.
They're always kind of like, what?
Wait,
and I'm like,
it'll make sense. I promise.
Yes, I promise it will. You're all excited right now, but you're about to be relatives legally. So you're going to learn how to be your truest self around somebody who's virtually a stranger to you. But that person does teach you what you like and what you don't like, and what you will stand up for and what you won't. So whether you weather that till the day you die or whether you divorce a week later, that has to do with what your soul wants, not what your heart wants or what your expectation is or what your parents want or what their expectation is. The one of the things that the Buddha teaches is expectation is the root of all suffering. If you go into anything and you have an expectation, you will fail and you will suffer, because no matter what, something will be above your expectation or below your expectation. And you've set the bar right in the middle. And just like the past and the present and the future, right here in the middle is the present. Below your expectations is the past, above is the future. Below talks about depression, anxiety, regret. You didn't remember our anniversary. Now you're a sack of shit.
Right.
I wanted candy. I wanted ice cream. I wanted flowers. You wanted all these unspoken things. You had an expectation. They didn't bring it. So now they're chink, 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 chink down on the list. And that's all filed away in the past, in the brain. Even though you might love that person, you're still mad about it. Then say that you go to work and you get roses and no card. Now you have anxiety about the future. Was it my boss, my boyfriend, my husband? Who was it? Who do you say thank you to? Do you take it home? And the husband go, where those flowers come from? Do you take them away and take them home? And the boss says, I sent you flowers for doing a good job. Why'd you take them home? You have all this anxiety because you're fearful for the future. You can't just sit and smell your roses and go, these are delicious. I love them, because you're in the present. No, you have an expectation. Somebody went above it or somebody went below it, and you've caused yourself suffering. So with all things, you have to not have an expectation. And when people go into relationships, they have this expectation. And when I marry people, I always say, when you're saying these vows to each other, you're not saying you're going to be this and I'm going to be that. You're saying, I'm standing in front of my friends and family saying I can be this kind of person. I'm mature enough to love and honor and cherish and uphold this vow that I'm making to myself. These other people are just the witnesses. And you happen to be a witness too. But you're about to make the same vow to yourself. And when something happens that breaks the marriage up, everybody goes, oh, he's terrible. He did this to me, or she's awful. She did that to me. No. They broke that vow to themselves. And people carry that throughout the rest of their lives to other relationships. Like, oh, they did that to me. Oh, stop thinking everything so much about you.
I know. It took me a really long time to like get out of that victim state of just like, I can't. And honestly, my ex is not a bad person in really any way. I mean, he's, just living his life at the time. And we had some, we, like you said, we were growing up, but
you were growing up.
I can totally coming to the realization that it's like, okay, you have to take responsibility for yourself, your actions, the way you reacted to these things.
Yes.
These situations, because that it took me it's still a struggle for me to like be like, okay, well, you can only control yourself
and your own responses.
Yeah.
Whatever you take away from life, whatever experience, whatever good, bad, and rotten, you still have to let it go. You can't carry every little thing that's ever happened to you, even the good. But we're so quick to let go of the good. And we just grab onto the bad like a scab and just pick it and pick it and pick it. That'll never heal and it will scar. But we just don't let it go, blow it into the wind like we do good things. It's like we have a really happy day or happy party or happy event with somebody and boom, it's gone the next day. We don't sit and relive that and pick at it and think about all the good things that were said. We just forget it right after it happens. If something bad happens, well, we just grind that down into our brain.
Why do you think we do that? Why do you think that's a thing? Because I do think that the collective does need to hear that.
Fear. It's fear.
Yeah.
Because we are so afraid we will repeat that action.
Yeah.
We are so afraid that we miss something, some small gesture, some small word, some small action, and we're trying to preserve ourselves. It's like the flight or fight. It's like, you know, did I miss something? I got to watch, I got to decode, I've got to be careful, I got to be on edge. And you cause all this anxiety by reliving that event over and over. And you have like post-traumatic stress relationship, you know, because you're constantly living that. But you have to remember that the past is the past. You've got to let that go. The biggest struggle most people have is that they don't forgive themselves and say, I am capable of choosing a better mate. I am capable of choosing a better person. I'm a better person than I was in that relationship. So I have more to offer now. So I can trust that I'll pick somebody better. And I think that's a big part of moving on out of breakups and relationships, is to stop picking at the old scab and start illuminating all the good things you did in that relationship. What actually happened, not what you rose-colored glasses looked at and said, oh, this was great. Well, did it really happen? Can you replicate? Do you have eyewitnesses? Do you have people here that can say, yeah, that really happened? I think a lot of times in romantic relationships, men and women both go back and forth, back and forth. We break up, we get back together, we break up, we get back together, because they have all these rose-colored glasses of what they assume is happening in that relationship, but they have no actual factual evidence, because they're expecting it to get better and they're not living in the moment. They're not soaking up that great and juicy steak that's right in front of them. You know, they're not just living in that beautiful, tasteful relationship at the time they're in it for what it is. It's always that like fear of missing out. And there's also the fear of screwing up. So, you know, it's like, is somebody better around the corner, or am I going to screw that up too? So stop living in fear and just love yourself. And say, of course you love me. Of course you do. I think a big thing that happens with relationships is everybody's expecting their love out of somebody else. And nobody's had your parents. Nobody's had your siblings. Nobody else has had your teachers. Nobody else has had your bosses. Nobody else has had your life experience. Nobody else can see it through your point of view. So you can't look across from John and go, oh, do you love me like I love you? Because that's a hearty, hell no.
No, John does not love the same way that I love.
No, and they're not going to.
You know, and that's fine. You know, that is perfectly fine. But it took a hot second for me to just sit with that and not feel unloved, because his love language is very, very different than mine.
Yes. And you have to remember that a lot of people ruin perfectly good relationships because they want their love to be mirrored back to them.
And honestly, I don't think that I really would want that. Like, you know,
I wouldn't want to date me for nothing.
No, like no, first of all, I mean, I'm trying to be honest and to be fair. I am trying to date myself more and spend more time with my authentic self. Yes. But no, I don't think that, you know, I do appreciate John's version and his language. Yeah, because I think I would be bored with that mirror.
Yeah. And the thing is, I think a lot of people sit around and measure people up to what they know to be love. And they expect love out of somebody else they still won't give to themselves. They expect this love that they never have given to themselves. It's like, why do you want them to feed you something you won't even cook?
For real. Like, I mean, it's true.
Make your own dish. Make your own dish for a change. I went totally off topic on you. I'm looking at my notes going, we have talked about nothing.
That's why I said we'll do this. Like, you know, I would love to have a few different
well, we are definitely being soul led.
Is that what it said? Soul, it was the soul.
It says answer the call, do what the soul is calling us to do.
Okay, yes, absolutely.
I did pick another card for you that said, I accept all of myself.
Yeah. And that's a huge, huge thing that I'm currently going through, because accepting the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, everything in between has been a real struggle for me, because like, of course you don't if you do shitty things, you don't want to accept that and like sit with that and take responsibility for that. You know, no one wants to wade through the shit that they spewed all over the place.
I always say this: it's not a race. The end is death.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't want to run to the end. I know it's waiting on me.
Yeah.
It's a process. Learning about you is a lifelong process. It's like getting a lifetime achievement award. It takes a lifetime to achieve it. You don't get somebody who just starts acting, boom, a lifetime achievement award. Well, what have you actually achieved? When you learn to blossom and bloom into who your authentic self is and who you actually are, you get that lifetime achievement award. It's like, I started in 1985. Oh, it's coming. It's coming up. I mean, I got my first cards in 1984. And then I really started reading for other people in 85. In July is 85. So it's been a while, a hot minute.
Yeah.
And I've learned a lot. I've learned what not to do, what to do. I used to always worry about what other people thought. I used to say, oh, am I going to hurt their feelings? Nah, I don't care.
That's my big thing too.
Let me collect those tears. Let me collect those tears. I always say, oh, I love it when you cry. But it's not necessarily that it brings me joy, but it tells me that you are being your truest self when you're crying, that you are being affected by the reading, that what is happening is getting to your rawest core and you are connecting to source. So I always tease and say, oh, tears, give me tears. But it's, my daughter always says, you should have something written that says, all cries, no lies. I said, that's pretty good. That's pretty snazzy. But I just really want it to be over the course of life from, 85 to 95 was really kind of raising kids and being busy. And a lot of people are like, well, as a young witch, what do you do? And I said, well, you practice when you can, And then when I was younger and living at home, I was Baptist minister's kid. I had to hide. I had to be, in the broom closet. And I had everything in a drawer in my room. And I just pulled my drawer out, and that was my altar. And then I put my drawer back in when I was done, covered it up with sweaters, and that was all. But it was very much a process of learning. And I realized it was hiding, not necessarily because I felt like I needed to hide. It was out of respect for my parents' religion. When I came out of the broom closet to my dad, I said, it's not necessarily that I don't believe what you believe, but it's so small. It's like a grain of sand on a giant beach. And it just ain't working for me. It's just not working. I said, I know, because I had a near-death experience, and I didn't go to heaven. I didn't go to hell. And I was a Sunday school teacher when this happened. I was 14 years old. And I said, I came back and went, what is going on here? And I felt like, oh my gosh, because I knew all kinds of things I didn't know before. And I asked my dad, I said, what is wrong with me? Because I'm trying to logically think this out. Very devout, baptized Christian kid going, something's wrong. Well, what was wrong was that shoe no longer fit me because I grew, my foot grew, and I needed something else. So I started, this is it's hard for you kids to remember, cell phones, free pagers, free computers. This is way back before you even had a laptop in your home, before you had a computer in your home, when we still had corded telephones and party lines.
The party line.
The party line. If you don't know what it is, look it up. It's cool. So anyway, we had no way to access information. So I started writing every cult I knew, from Jehovah's Witnesses to Mormons to Rosicrucians to the Gardenians. And I wrote letters. Tell me what you do. Tell me what you do. And I was like, I was bidding sororities. I want to join. Pick me. So I learned about all different kinds of religions. And what that brought me to was they all want members. And all they want is 10% of your income and your immortal soul. That's all. And I went, that doesn't really work for me. So I just started studying Raymond Buckland. And then years later, I had the fortunate opportunity, once he moved to Columbus, to meet Raymond Buckland and study with him. And if you don't know, I call it Big Blue, but it's the Encyclopedia of Witchcraft. And Raymond Buckland taught me a lot about how to be true to you. And one of the things that he did, he'd always call me Rosie. And he had a second wife named Rose, but he moved to Columbus for his third wife. But he would say, "Now, Rosie, listen, stop listening to everybody else. Listen to you." Because I'd say, "Well, it says I got to do this and I got to do that and I got to do this." But when I set my altar up that way, it feels weird. For one, I'm left-handed. So everything seemed backwards and weird. I'd reach over here to do this. I'd reach over here to do that. And I said, "So don't look at my stuff. It's weird." Because I do it how I feel is the good flow for me. He goes, "You do what feels good for you, because this is your magic and your energy. It is not cookie cutter." And that's one of the things when I get online nowadays and I see all of these gatekeepers and all this, "You can't do this and you can't do that. You can't do this. You can't do that." And I just roll the eyes. I'm just like, listen, if it works and it's your intention and it's your magic, do what works. Because I've done what works forever. And I've read so many different things about this style and that style and this style. It's like saying, how do you drive a car? What style do you drive your car?
Like, yeah, I mean, it's true. It's like, well, depends on where you are.
I get in the seat and I adjust it according to my body.
Yeah.
And then I'll say, "Well, now I'm going to hop in your car and I'm going to drive it just like you do. But we're all different heights and weights and arm lengths and leg lengths. And you can't drive a car. Try to get and drive a car right after John gets in it. I'm sure you readjust your seat." And working with magic, working with energy, working with witchcraft is the same way. You have to adjust it to fit what you have and adjust it to fit your need. We're all different, all different. You have the basic elements outside your door. It's called nature. That's it. I always say, I always give everything for the basic poor witch. I'm like, I got little stuff for everybody. And they're like, "Well, I can't really afford it." I'm like, "Well, here's a list. Go home. Go for a walk. Pick this up." And they're like, "What?" I'm like, "It's right outside." I said, "There used to be tons of things in the universe that didn't require a store."
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. I know.
Go get it. Go get you a stick. Go get you a stone. Go get you a pebble. And they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "Really? It's that easy." You don't have to be so tied to all of this. And it's called a ritual, not because the pieces that you're using. It's called a ritual, but ritual because the way you're using it. It's the intention in which you're using it that makes it a ritual. It's the way that you're putting your power into it. It's just like lighting a cigarette. You ever seen anybody smoke? They pack that cigarette case down. They get those cigarettes in a certain way. They pull it out. They put it in there. They light. Then they... And every person smokes a cigarette says, "Oh, I smoke cigarettes because it makes me relax." Except nicotine is a stimulant.
No.
Yeah, nicotine's a stimulant. It makes your blood pressure pump faster and goes better. I mean, it is not in any way relaxing. But what makes the smoker relax is the ritual. They remove themselves from a situation that's stressful. They sequester themselves in a room or a place or outside, away from all their stressors. They go through a ritual of packing their cigarettes, moving them in a certain way, getting them from a special place, lighting it up, looking at the flame, literally, making a statement, "So glad I'm out of there." Starting a fresh intention, and then they inhale a meditative breath, and they hold it, and then they let that stress out. That's what's relaxing them, is the ritual, not the cigarette. And so when I do meditation with people, or I do regression with people, or I do hypnosis, when we talk about stopping cigarette smoking, I always say you have to understand, it only takes 72 hours to get nicotine out of your system, but it takes months to get that ritual broke, because it's the ritual you're addicted to. It's the ritual. So whenever you're doing witchcraft, when you're starting out, keep doing your ritual, the repetition of intention, the repetition of putting your energy in a place, at a special place, a special time, and a special time of year with special tools. That's what makes magic. Your intention is what makes magic. It is not that you have this crystal from this shop in this part of the universe.
Excuse me. Sorry.
You're fine.
Go on.
Coughing out your demons.
Yeah. I mean, it's a full-time job.
That's because I'm talking about smoking.
Facts, though. And you really make a good point, because like the more I think about it, I don't even like smoking cigarettes.
I know.
I don't even like it.
Don't. Most people who smoke don't. But it's the ritual of recovery. They're moving themselves out of a stressful situation and recovering their thoughts, recovering their intention, and recovering them away from all of this input. Because the majority of people who are even from smoking to drugs to alcohol, they're always empaths who are self-medicating to dumb down their feelings, their empathy, their natural clairvoyance. They're numbing it out. Instead of embracing it, they're running away from it. So sometimes it's fearful because they're told they can't do it, or it's against God's will, or it's witchcraft and you're going to burn in hell, or whatever reason. You have to we were all empathic for centuries because we couldn't even speak. We had to know what each other wanted so we could all stay alive as people.
That's true.
So we were born to be empathic as humans. And then we gradually learned how to grunt at each other and understand things. But you have to understand, you can speak to someone and never say a word. I always laugh when I hear people argue. When people who are in a couple and they're screaming at each other, I always think how far apart their hearts must be. Even though their faces are like this, their hearts are miles apart. That's why they're screaming. They're screaming at the other one's heart. Your heart is so far away from me. Your energy is so far away from me. But the converse is always true. When you're with somebody you love and your heart is so close, you don't even have to say a word. You just make a gesture. And they'll go, oh, let me go do that for them. Or you're laying in bed close and intimate with someone you love. You whisper very little, low tones of I love you and sweet things, because your hearts are now one heart. Because those hearts are so bonded and so close together. So words mean things. That's why it's called spelling, because you spell out your intention. You spell out what you want. I always teach my beginning people this. If I say C and I say T and I say A, you're like, but if I say C-A-T, you're like, wait, that's a creature. It has 4 legs and a tail and short pointy ears and a short nose, and it's kind of a little sneaky thing. You start to get a vision of a cat. Now there's no cat on that page, but you've envisioned it in your mind. You've created magic by spelling C-A-T. Now I can switch that around and go A-C-T. Now you have act. How are you going to act about that? So it's all about how you rearrange the energy. So whenever I start to train people, I'm like, we learn our alphabet one letter at a time, because then we have to learn how we move them around. It's the same way with tarot cards. It's the same way with anything. You learn them one thing at a time, just like our people. We learn our mom, we learn our dad, we learn our brothers, we learn our sisters. We get introduced as people. And then we start comparing how they act around each other. And then we start comparing how they act as groups, and then how they act as a community, and how they act as a county and a state and a community of the whole country. But everything begins with you and your intention. Everything. Are you putting out a good intention for yourself? Are you putting that out there? So, the work you do on yourself is a daily goal. The work you do on yourself is that lifetime achievement. You're not being selfish by working on yourself. You're being selfless. You're giving less of yourself to everybody else so you can be more for everybody else. And that's the key. We all want to be more, 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 more. But we spend so little time on us. And then especially women are told, well, you spend too much time, your handbags and your nails and your hair and your face and blah, blah, blah. Well, if it makes her feel good enough to spend energy on her husband or her kids or her coworkers or her girlfriend or whatever's happening, she has more energy from doing those things. She's creating magic. Let her do it. Get out of her way.
Yeah, I feel you on that. That specifically, like makeup and, hair and the way I present very Libra of me to be like, oh yeah, I relate to the whole makeup thing. Like, no way. But I mean, I've told partners, many different partners, like, stay out of my way. This is my magic. This is my spell work. This is my ritual. They don't understand why I don't sit
glamour
around
is
with
a huge makeup. Makeup and glamour is a huge spell unto itself.
And because that's when I have time to work out my intentions for the day, and for whatever I want, I need to do that day. And because sometimes I use herbs and things like that in my spell work, but I think a lot of people who have lived with me are just like, what, you're not really a witch. And I'm like, well, I don't really, it's different, it's different for everybody.
Well, some people can grow plants and grow plants awesomely. I have a friend, she looks like her house is a jungle. She is so good with plants, and she can tell you everything that's going on with that plant. When it's sick, they have names. She's inspired me to grow plants, which I got black thumb. I look at a plant, it dies. And she's like, no, you can grow plants, I promise. I'm like, teach me, sensei, teach me. And I have had a plant 3 years living now, which is a big deal for me. It's a fig, and he stands still living. He has a name. I talk to him every day. But it is a big thing for me to grow a plant. Now, I consider her a witch. She doesn't consider herself a witch, but I consider her a witch. Because if I cut my finger, boy, she's right over there with the aloe vera, rubbing it on me. If I get a toothache, clove will take care of that. Clove's great for, as she knows every medicinal property of these plants. She knows everything. And I'm like, you're a little witch. You're a little herb witch. You're a little herb witch. You're a green witch. I'm like, no. You don't know it, but you are. But she has all these little Appalachian granny magic things going on. I'm like, your intention and your relationship with plants, I envy. But I'm not that kind of witch. So I'm more of the divination universe witch, eclectic. People are like, what do you practice? Who do you worship? And I said, I'm going to tell you who I worship. Me. And they're like, what? And I said, I worship me. I sell no deities in my shop. I don't promote deities. And it's not that deities don't work. Deities are, for me, a focal point for people. But then they'll go, well, so-and-so does this and so-and-so does that and blah, 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 blah. And they do them. So you should have just stayed a Christian. My Lord, that's a lot of work.
I view them as, I don't know, specialists, I guess.
Yes.
But I spent so much of my life being a Christian and really being programmed to just, worship God.
Yeah.
And again, I don't really, it's not that I don't really worship any deity. It's just like, I feel like they are similar to the archangels. Like, everybody has their place. They have their own special, that, like,
just
I
like
said,
here, we have a milkman, we have a postman, we have a teacher, we have a nurse, we have the doctor, we have lawyers, we have everybody who went to school for a special thing. I don't go to the dentist and say, so can you look at this wart on my toe? He would look at me like, girl, what's wrong with you? I don't do feet.
Right. But and it's also interesting to me that many of the religions and deities overlap with one another. And I'm not saying that they're all the same. I believe that it's very much different perspectives and different, things to that nature. But yeah, I don't know. Of course, I love the cat deities. They're all around my house.
Yes. Yes. Now, see, I have no deities in my house, but on my altar is a mirror. And when I raised my kids, their little witch boxes had mirrors in them, but no deities. And whenever we made an intention, we would put that intention into that mirror, because ultimately every step you take is your responsibility. And so it wasn't up to some sky daddy.
Yes, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like the intentions, like when working with herbs and crystals and other spirits and guides, again, it's all a guide to bring yourself back to yourself. Yeah.
I explained it to my grandson like this. We're all pieces of a puzzle. We're all cut different shapes and different sizes. Some of us are the same shapes with different pictures on it. We have same shapes, similar background, but the picture is different. Now, when you put us all together, we make the full picture. It's like religion. Everybody has a little different shaped religion, but all of us have the same spirituality, the cardboard that the picture is printed on. We're all souls in existence. Now, each different imprint is going to be different for each puzzle piece. There's over 6,000 religions on this planet today. Abrahamic religions get the big bill because they got the best advertising. Now, I always say they're three brothers fighting for the attention of the same daddy. But
it's true. You're not wrong.
I always say this: I worship energy. I look at lights and I tell my clients this: that doesn't care if I'm watching porn or reading the Bible. It has no judgment. Its job is to illuminate me and my walk and my path and my study of who I am. If you choose to walk a path, walk your own. I'm not saying that you studying this is wrong, or you following that deity is wrong, or you doing that. I know it's wrong for me, because I'm not trained. I'm not exchanging one Jesus religion for another addiction in another religion. It's like trading heroin for crack. It's like you're still an addict.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. Like, and that's another thing too, like deprogramming myself, because I'm very much interested in everything I can get my hands on, to be honest.
Yeah. I went through that for years, a decade probably, just reading about religion, reading about philosophies, reading about everything. And the one thing that just absolutely always stands out to me, and I collect Bibles. I always say I collect Bibles because it keeps them out of the hands of people who don't know how to drive them. But one of my favorite passages is Matthew chapter 6, verse 22. And every Bible says something different, but in the King James, it says, if the light of the eye, if the eye be single and the light of the eye be open, your whole body will be full of light. Now, it doesn't say eyes. It doesn't say plural. It says eye, one eye. You're single. And I interpret that to say that when Jesus was saying that, he's saying that when you get your third eye open, there's no need for this book. There's no need for religion. When you are one with your soul, the universe is open to you. It's open. You know what's right and wrong instinctively. And I always laugh when I read back to Genesis for some people, and I say, they always say that the two trees, the tree of life and the tree of knowledge, you can eat from anything except the tree of knowledge. Don't ask no questions. Don't ask nothing for the tree of knowledge, because you'll surely die. And then the snake comes in and says, you're not going to die. They don't want you to eat from that, because you'll be like a god. And if you read on, it does say, well, here they are. Once God closed Adam and Eve, he goes, and here they are amongst us, just as gods, plural. It says it in the Bible. They don't teach you that in little kids' school. Here's Adam and Eve. They are now like us. They are as gods. Their soul lives forever now, but he makes it to where their bodies die. That is their curse. I said, so the alien ant farm went awry really quick for God.
Very quick, like it,
very
like
quickly.
It's 7 days.
We made it
all went
three
to hell.
three whole chapters in the Genesis. So, and then I always like to hold up the Bible to people and say, so point on this Bible where Noah is. And they always go like right to the middle. And I go, oh no, we're at chapter 6 in Genesis. And they're like, what? I said, oh yeah, he got 6 whole chapters in before he went, this alien ant farm went bad. We got to ditch it.
It's true. Like you couldn't give us like a couple more days. Like see what
I had
happened.
A minister dad. So I was forced to read that Bible for many years. And I still read it every day. But as a witch in Appalachia, it's part of who I am. Because that Bible, for me, I get a lot of stuff from Christians. But you're going to hell. I'm like, can't go to a place I don't believe in. So good luck.
It's like, don't
like,
know what to tell you.
Think you're going to heaven? I'm like, oh, honey, I don't want in your gated community. No, thanks. So I said, yeah, pass. But I always say this, if heaven's where you want to go be there. It's fine. When I do mediumship, they're always like, can I talk to my grandma? And I'm like, so was she really religious? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, why do you want to bother her in heaven? And they're like, what? And I'm like, she doesn't want me knocking on the door. No. And the dude that keeps the Bible, he's tired of me loitering outside the gates.
Yeah, I mean, I feel it though. They're probably just like, leave us the hell alone.
I said, even if I get up there and knock on the gate and they open the door, she's going to look at me and go, because if she talks to me, then that shows you that what she believed in is bupkis. So you're not going to believe what she believes in. So you won't go to heaven. Then she's going to cry and cry. Except that's a lie too, because her own Bible says there'll be no tears in heaven, because everybody goes to heaven, mind wiped clean, so they don't know anybody's missing, and they won't recognize anybody when you get there. So don't let grandma guilt you.
Yeah, she doesn't even know you anymore.
So don't kill her. You're not here at Christmas. You're not here at Easter. I will cry when I die. You're not in heaven. Girl, you ain't going to know me in heaven.
So that brings me to like when you had your near-death experience, you said it was very different. There was no heaven or hell. I'm very into NDEs. Like I've been on an NDE kick with like, and everyone's NDE is so different. Some of them are the same.
I've had 3. And
You've had 3 NDEs?
I've had 3.
You need to be more careful.
Yeah. Don't worry. It all involves not breathing. So that's the key.
Take a breath.
Keep breathing. Keep breathing. When you stop breathing, these things happen. So the key is, it's like air. Oxygen contains water. We have water in our air in front of us right now. We can't see it, but it's there. We have oxygen in our lungs right now that contains water. But if we have too much water in our lungs, we drown. We have water in our cups. We have water in the river. We have water in our toilets. We have water everywhere. Souls are like water. Energy is everywhere. In our bodies, our soul is in a cup. We are contained in this place and time. When you die, you're like the water that's in air. You're everywhere. I can't say if somebody's sitting here in the room with me, stop breathing my air. That's my air. We can't divide the air in half, put a book between us, say, no, that's just, you breathe your air, I'll breathe mine. We're not in little suits where nobody can breathe each other's air. Souls are like that. When you die, you are part of everything. All that ever was, all that ever will be, part of it all. I explain it like making macaroni and cheese. You boil the macaroni, it absorbs up the water, you take it over to strain it, and all the water goes out in all different directions out of the colander. And sometimes in the sink, you'll have a puddle over here, and sometimes you have little droplets over here, and sometimes you have a little bunch of over there, and the water goes everywhere. But at one time, all that water was in one pot, dancing around with each other. When you die, your soul goes in a lot of different directions. Parts of our soul, when we talk about reincarnation, I believe people always reincarnate as people. There's a school of thought that always talks about transmutation, where you're an ant, where you're a dog, where you're a cow. That's more the Indian belief system. I don't believe in transmutation, but I do believe in energy. But I believe that part of the selection of being the higher self of human means that you're always going to come back as human experience. If you choose to come back, because not everybody chooses to come back. Everybody says, oh, we're recycled. We're going to be reborn. We're going to do regeneration. We're going to reincarnate. Not everybody reincarnates every time they die. And I feel like some people reincarnate eons after the last time they were here. I call those new souls because it's been a long time since they've wore some flesh. But every soul is an old soul. It's just been a long time since they last wore the suit. So it's a little odd. It's like, oh, I don't remember the fingers fitting so tight. So they're still kind of new at this. They're still trying to learn how to drive this newfangled machine in this newfangled world. Old souls are like, damn, I was just here. God, red light.
Right.
Just here. I can learn this again. Now, energy is everywhere. There's always light on this planet from our sun. But if our sun goes out, there's still energy all throughout our universe. There's still quasars and novas and things are happening and galaxies are crashing into each other. And there's all kinds of things that are happening. We are a speck of sand, a speck. And we think we are the universe. Our energy is just as great as all of that, packaged in one little grain of sand. But when we die, we become all of that. And we choose to be the grain of sand every time. You know, always reminds me, takes me back to the mustard seed. They talk about the mustard seed. I always use it as the piece of sand because I love the beach. So you choose to live the tiny life because the grandness of it all, I like to be a small fish in a big sea or a big fish in a tiny sea. Which do you want? So when you die with a near-death experience, you don't think how your brain thinks. You think how your soul thinks. You're cool with everything. In life, death, pain, misery, all that's gone. You just are. You are the sun. You are the novas. You are the galaxies. You are everything. People go, where are you going to go when you die? I said, same place I came from. And once you have no fear of death, you can fully embrace living. A lot of people are afraid to live because they're afraid to die. And when you're not afraid to die, you can have a blast living. And you're not afraid to love people. I love people like a river going around a rock. I'm going to love you whether you like it or not. Mm-hmm. I said, sometimes I'm sure it's illegal, but...
No charges have been pressed yet.
No charge, free hugs. But I do tell people sometimes, and people will hug me and say, why do I want to cry when I hug you? I said, just give it to me. Just give it to me. Just give it to me. I can take it. They're like, you feel like you wash me every time I hug you. I feel so light. I'm like, I can take it. I know where to dump it when I'm done. Just give it to me. And they're like, why does that make me feel some sort of way? And I said, well, because I felt what you feel. And I know where to dump it. Because you don't need to carry every experience, every word, every mistake. Stop carrying all that shit in your backpack. Clean it out. You don't need to have it. And once your soul realizes that you can let go of all that and just be the wonderful creation that you are, and that you yourself are the physical representation of God, and that you have source, universe, God, goddess, that energy that makes you alive is in you, you treat you a hell of a lot better. If the God or goddess walked in your front room right now, how would you serve them? Would you give them the food that you eat? Would you give them cigarettes? Would you give them drugs? Would you give them a beating like you do your spouse? No. Why would you do that to you?
Yeah, and each other,
Yes,
because we're all from source energy. And
that's exactly right.
And that was part 1 of our conversation with the Mystic Rose. Join me next week for part 2 of our series together here on The Spatial Spectacle.